Hello, I'm Hannah Silver and I'm going to talk about collaborating with other artists. What do we mean by collaboration? It means something different for every single project. Another challenge that you have when you're collaborating, you've got to figure it out and build it and decide how you're going to work for that particular project, depending on the work that you want to make and depending on the people who you're working with. Some collaborators are really happy working at a distance, so one person does their thing and their expertise, the other person does their thing separately, bung it together, and it's still called a collaboration. Other people will want to get 7 people in a room, all with different backgrounds and different ways of working, spend days and days and days kind of sharing the way in which you work, devising, improvising, one person leading a process one day, another person leading it another day, and make something together. You might have a collaboration where a musician actually does nothing involving music, but writes the poetry, and a poet writes the music. So a collaboration is different in every single model, and it's never really accurate to say, oh well, I worked with that person but we didn't really collaborate. If you've worked with someone, if you've made something with somebody, you have collaborated. You just might have done it in a different way. Don't mind read. So this is another point that I've learned through experience, tricky experience sometimes. When I realised that I'm working with someone and we're not really communicating and we're actually hoping that we're going to read each other's minds. So it's a point that I think is especially relevant when you're working with an artist from a totally different art form. So maybe you're a poet and you've got no background in music and you're working with a composer, or maybe you're working with a dancer. And communication is really key, and when you're communicating you've also got to speak the same language as each other. That means various things. It might mean that you need to really get to know how your collaborator works, so you need to look up their work, you need to be really familiar with their working processes, so that when you're talking to them you can actually reference things that they've done and you know that you're talking about the same thing. It means finding a common language. So for a musician, dynamic means something different to for a dancer. For a dancer it might mean speed, for a musician it might mean volume. So you've got to make sure that you're kind of sharing a language and you're finding that language together. And it's never too late to start communicating. You might find yourself biting your tongue in the first weeks of a project, but then realise that you really need to express how you're feeling about the work. It's never too late to start that. I've done projects where I've sat down with a person I worked with at the end of the project and discovered all sorts of things about the working process that I hadn't realised. Say yes. So what does saying yes mean? It often means getting on your feet and trying something out. So this is something that I learned when I was doing a degree at Dartington. I think Dartington basically was a degree in collaboration. They didn't call it that, they called it choreography and performance writing. It was about learning how to collaborate. One of the things that we all did wrong initially was we used to sit on the floor together, often on the concrete, maybe on the grass, and just everyone would contribute their ideas. We never had a director, we never had anyone kind of leading the process. Everyone was equal, so everyone would chuck in their ideas, someone would disagree, someone would give the next idea, the next idea, the next idea, and we could spend hours and hours and hours talking and never getting anything done. But then something magic happens if you say yes to everything, all of the ideas. Someone contributes an idea, you say, yes, let's try it. Get on your feet, try it. It might not work, but it might lead to a better idea. And then you try that, and then you try that, and you keep going, and an hour later you've got the beginnings of a performance. So saying yes is just crucial, and not only is that how to make work, it's also how to create an enjoyable working process where everyone in the space feels valued. If you'd like to talk more about collaborating with other artists and art forms, I'm going to be running a Google Hangout session on the 15th of July at 12 o'clock UK time, and there's going to be more Google Hangouts and videos coming throughout July. These workshops are being run as part of the Pangaea Poetry Slam, an online poetry slam open to anyone in the world. You can watch the trailer for it here. And you can find out more about the slam and the workshops on the Pangaea Poetry website.